It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
On a Friday, and good to have you with us. Thank you, Chad Erickson. Lots to do over the next 60 minutes. Robert Littal will join us to talk about a couple of the top stories of the week. How about Bronny James last night, huh? Anybody see that? Big night in the G League on the road for him. It's Bronny. We got to talk about it for a couple minutes. Robert Littal will join us, and we'll get into that. Mike Yam, NFL Network, also does a great job with the ACC over on the CW. Will hang out with us for a couple of segments as well, talk some football with him. And we do start things out in the NFL. Sam Yarnell is here, and wow. Well, that was a doozy, wasn't it? Rams continue a push towards the postseason. I've been saying it for a week. If you watched the broadcast last night, you heard Kirk Herbstreit say it at the end of the broadcast because everybody's catching up to me. I do not want to play the Rams in the postseason. I know it wasn't a beautiful game. It wasn't a masterpiece, but they found a way to win on the road in the NFL, which is always a good thing. Beating the 49ers last night by a final score of 12-6. The Niners are dead. Their season is over. It comes to an end last night. And boy, I mean, if you're Brock Purdy late in that game, Sam, you cannot make that throw that he makes that gets intercepted with about 5.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, which essentially ended the Niners season because then the Rams were able to run clock. They get the field goal late. And it was all she wrote for the Niners. On a weird night, the weather was weird in the first half. Then it sort of cleared up in the second half. It certainly killed any chances at the over bet at 49.5. Hope you didn't tail me on that. All the prop bets basically got killed except for George Kittle. Which hit. What did you make of what transpired last night in Santa Clara? And we'll get to the whole Devondre Campbell situation in a couple minutes.
I hate to be the guy to take a victory lap, but watch me take this victory lap. I'm really glad that in like the 15 minutes after the game ended, and honestly, not even that, it was like by the end of the third quarter of that game yesterday, everyone kind of realized that they're not going to extend Brock Purdy, and that Brock Purdy probably won't get a second contract in the NFL. It only took me screaming that at people for well over a year that this was a system where you could take any quarterback, especially Mr. Irrelevant from Iowa State, and make them have moderate success while it dries up when you don't have that plethora of weapons around them, including a generational running back, right? A top 5 running back of this generation. That was on full display last night. It's been on full display this entire season. Like 10 out of the 12 games this season. That has been the main storyline with this 49ers. It's we were right all along when they don't have literally everything perfect to fall into line for Brock Purdy. He's not really a capable quarterback. He's not a competent quarterback. That's for darn sure. So I'm glad that we've kind of come around on that narrative and everyone kind of understands now that this guy never really had a chance. On the Rams side, listen, when Herbstreit said that about not wanting to play the Rams in the playoffs, I'm not going to lie, this game wasn't what did it for me. Like, I agree with the principle that I think the Rams have a chance to be a buzzsaw this year in that NFC. But this game definitely argued against that point. You want to talk about them competing with any team in the National Football League, go watch the tape of last week, because this week sure wasn't it. Matthew Stafford, for 2.5 quarters of this game, could not throw the ball. He had wide open receivers. He was missing by 3 to 4 yards. That is completely uncharacteristic of a future Hall of Famer, in my opinion. Kyron Williams, not a ton of success on the ground, averaged less than 4 yards a carry. The Rams as a whole averaged less than 4 yards of carry. All of their rushers. The Blake Corum thing still looks like a bust. Yes. I don't know, Jason. I'm not sold on the Rams anymore, and I bet on them.
I'm still sold. You know what? I've said this before. I'll say it again. There's no such thing as bad wins. You go on the road and get a win against a desperate 49ers team, although they didn't play like a desperate football team. I will still say I do not want to play Sean McVay and Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and that team in the postseason. Insult to injury for the Niners. Third quarter, down a zillion linebackers. They say, hey, Devondre Campbell, we need you in the game. Started 11 of 12 games or 12 of 13 games this year. He says, you know what? I'm good. You guys go without me. Walks off the field in the fourth quarter. Post-game, Kyle Shanahan and George Kittle talking about that.
He said he didn't want to play today.
Play today?
Yeah.
The coaching staff?
He did when I asked him why he didn't want to go in.
Has that ever happened to you where a player said they didn't want to play in a game?
I didn't really hear anything about it until I got in the locker room, so it's all brand new information to me. Look, if you're on the roster, and you suit up, you're expected to play. I think anyone in this building, if they got asked to go in, I would say 100% of everybody would die to get on that football field. And so, people are going through random things off the field. I can't speak on that. Whatever, his decision was, it wasn't for this organization. It wasn't for this team. And no, that's on him. So, not very happy about it. I would have something to say. I wish I would have heard about it on the field, but I didn't. Now, is that the reason we lost? Absolutely not. But you don't really, it's hard to win football games when someone doesn't want to play football.
That about sums it up, Sam. I mean, George Kittle couldn't have said it any better. And there was about a minute more than that that we could have played, but I don't want to play the entire thing because he was steamed. He was really steamed. And you have to imagine Devondre Campbell probably won't be on this team by the time we get to the rest of the Sunday slate in the NFL.
No, and it's great. I'm so happy for him. I'm going to play the heel here, obviously, because what else do I do on this show? This is a guy who very clearly just wanted to actually contend this year and was being fed a bunch of false information behind the scenes in San Francisco about how they were going to turn it around and don't request a trade, Devondre, because we can still win this division. Well, then it all blew up in their faces. And Devondre Campbell pulled Avonte Davis and walked off the field during a game. The Niners earned that because of how they've run that organization this year.
Well, it's going to be an interesting offseason for sure in San Francisco / Santa Clara. A lot of decisions for this franchise to make as we go into next season. One thing we know, they won't be in this postseason. We're coming back with more Sports Wrap. What we're watching next. Coming up in 10 minutes, it's Mike Yam from NFL Network hanging out on the show. Get some thoughts with him. Also, does a great job with the ACC over on the CW. All right, Sam Yarnell, every week on this show, we try to help out our audience, sort of a visual TV guide, if you will. There's so many NFL games to watch every Sunday around the league that we want to try and lend a hand. Give you some advice on which games we're watching, maybe influence some of your decisions. So Sam Yarnell, week 15 in the NFL on Sunday. What are you watching, sir?
Yeah, the TV version of TV Guide, a magazine that got discontinued 30 years ago. I'm glad that we're keeping up with the times, Jason Page. I'm glad that we're staying relevant in this new era.
You're welcome.
All right, my two games this weekend. First, in the early window, gosh, you're all going to hate me for this. Bengals-Titans. Bengals, a 3-10 team against a 5-8 team, and I'm going to be locked in the whole time. Listen, this Titans defense this year has actually been really good and fun to watch. So I am very interested in the matchup between the Titans defense and the Bengals offense. If it's as simple as me tuning in for the Bengals offensive drives because I want to see good football, that might be it. But you're telling me Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase going up against that Titans defense, it's going to be fun to watch. I am anticipating a good game here, as much as the records may not speak to it. The Titans, a team, again, their strength of victory is good this year. They've played a really hard schedule. So I'll be locked in the 1 o'clock window for Bengals Titans Jason Page. And then in the late window, the game that I've coined the Battle for Ohio. Steelers, Eagles. As I'm sure many of the viewers have noticed, once we got past about week 12 into this final third of the regular season, I kind of try and approach it with going into each game knowing that I can learn something about the offseason. Because really at this point you can't. Or the postseason. This game is going to completely change how I look at either one of or both of these teams with regard to playoff success. Now, this could be the Steelers coming out, absolutely wiping the Eagles, and me coming in on Monday and placing an even larger bet on the AFC to win the Super Bowl. Or it could be the Eagles absolutely destroying the Steelers and me saying, all right, well, the Steelers are what we always thought they'd be. They're going to make the playoffs and they'll be a first-round exit. Or the third option, both. This could be a terrible game. I'm talking 10-3 final. And the the takeaway from that is, all right, we were foolish for putting Saquon Barkley in the MVP conversation at any time. The Eagles probably don't have a chance when they make it to playing against the Buccaneers or the Lions. And the Steelers defense, wow. That actually could win them a game in the playoffs. So I'm excited to watch Steelers, Eagles, or again, as I've coined it, the Battle for Ohio this weekend.
All right, fair enough. By the way, Saquon Barkley right now, if you're talking about MVP, is plus 550. Josh Allen at minus 450. Just to update, by the way, yesterday we talked about the Rams number to win the Super Bowl. It was 55-1. It's now down to 40-1. After the win yesterday. So just something to keep in mind. Two games I am yes, go ahead.
The Rams
please.
Now your betting favorite to win the NFC West.
That puts a smile on Sam Yarnell's face for sure. All right, let's talk about a couple of games I'll be watching this weekend. One of them involves a team we talked about earlier in the week because we were talking about potentially who could sneak up and capture a wild card spot right now, a team that isn't a wild card team. I look at the Commanders as being vulnerable in the NFC if you're talking about a spot where you could get a wild card surprise. The Commanders in New Orleans to take on the Saints. If it isn't Derek Carr, it'll be Jake Haener getting the start for the Saints in that game. Commanders minus 7.5, by the way, if you're interested in such things. Minus 390 on the money line for the Commanders, plus 310 for the Saints. That is one game I will be watching with great interest as the Saints, you know what? Kudos to them for the rut they got into, middle of the season. For them to even still be in the mix for a playoff spot is pretty remarkable. My hunch is that comes to an end this weekend, though. If they have to play without Derek Carr, who's got the fractured hand, I believe it is. All right, my second game, Sam. I mean, this is easy. Like club and baby seals, as I like to say. The Bills and the Lions. I mean, it's the game everybody should be watching, including you, Sam Yarnell, Bills fan number one. In des Trois, minus 2.5 to the Lions, which I think is a missed line. I think the Lions win. But we'll talk about that a little later on in the show. Minus 142 for the Lions in that game, plus 120 to the Bills. 54.5, and it's the total. They're expecting a banger there in Detroit with the Lions and the Bills. So a couple of easy games to check out this weekend. I think the list gets narrower and narrower as we get to this stage in the season, given all the different scenarios that start to shrink as far as the playoffs are concerned, Sam Yarnell.
Now, if before the season, back on like August, we'll say August 16th, I would have told you that going into week 15,
would have said Commander Saints was a game we'd be watching.
The Commanders would have the same record as their rivals to the north, the Baltimore Ravens.
Good point.
Would you have thought that the Commanders had an incredibly successful season, or the Ravens kind of crapped the bed? Because I think right now you could either way.
I think it goes both ways. I don't think anybody thought this Commanders team in year one with Jaden Daniels was going to be an 8-5 team as we start week 15. And honestly, if you had asked me through the first 6 or 7 weeks of the Ravens, if I thought that team would be 8-5, I would have probably had you peeing into a cup, because I don't think I would have thought that either. I'm kind of surprised. I've said it before. I'm disappointed with this Ravens team that feels like it has all the pieces. Well, certainly on offense has all the pieces. We know about their issues in the secondary, defending against the pass, all that stuff. I did not think this would be an 8-5 team. I thought this should be a division winning team. And again, it points to, if I may say so myself, as a not number one in the Mike Tomlin fan club, but pretty close to the top, what it says about Mike Tomlin, that with everything coming into the season with Fields versus Russell Wilson, injuries, all this stuff, that they have been able to take control of that AFC North is really remarkable. He's done a phenomenal job this year. Coach of the Year will be an interesting conversation. We're coming back with Mike Yam next. This Friday edition of Sports Wrap continues. A little later on, Robert Littal, our friend from Black Sports Online, weighing in on the top stories of the week. He's got some Bronny James he's going to want to talk about. Page versus the Prince still to come later in the show as well. NFL picks supremacy. On this Friday, I thought it was a good idea to bring in our friend Mike Yam. Does a great job, NFL Network, also ACC on the CW, who hangs out with us. He added that title and duty this year as well, because you don't have enough to do. He's an author. He's got fried rice and marinara. I said it right. It's not marinara and fried rice. It's fried rice and marinara.
No, I'm with you there. Oh, hold on. Oh, no. That's
you don't have the book
over my shoulder. It's not, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. So he's an author and somebody I've known for, crazy to say, like 20 years.
I know, we're getting old, bro.
Man, I know. It's absolutely true. So I want to talk some football with you, and it's kind of a dual ACC NFL question. I wanted to know what your reaction was to Bill Belichick taking the North Carolina job, because I was shocked. I thought it was a ploy just to see what NFL teams were going to be interested, and maybe it was, and maybe the NFL teams were just like, yeah, Bill, you want to take that North Carolina job, just go ahead, man.
Yeah, candidly, Jason, just absolutely shocked, to be honest with you. I know that there was a lot of buzz and some reports that, both sides were talking. Fine, it is what it is. I didn't think in a million years that Coach was going to go down this path of coaching college. Now, I'll say this. There's been a lot of criticism around, hey, can Belichick do it? And not necessarily the coaching aspect, because I think we all realize he's, probably one of the top three or four coaches in the history of the game. It is more of what the demands are from a college perspective, and NIL and recruiting. The biggest pushback that I would have against those, because I think he's going to crush it. I think he's going to be super successful.
Really?
I'm not at all worried about a lot of the logistical things that people are concerned about, because if you go and you look at college recruiting, head coaches are generally the closers, right? Like, they have an entire staff that goes out, is on the road making these trips. I've been around enough coaches that will tell you, like, hey, there's a few players that I'm involved on the process from start to finish with. And even in those circumstances, you have layers of other coaches and support staff that are handling a lot of that. I'm not worried about it. And by the way, NIL cash that's going to be coming through. And last time I checked, Coach goes into a living room and brings out his rings and lays them out. And he talks about Tom Brady, talks about Gronk, talks about, all of the legendary Super Bowls that he's won as a head coach. Like, people are going to sign up. I think this is a huge coup for North Carolina. And candidly, I just didn't think it was going to happen, because I thought Coach was going to try to hold out for an NFL job.
Not to ask for too much behind the scenes, but you walk around the halls of NFL Network out there in LA. Did most people that you work with and associate with think that this was actually a possibility, or were they like us?
Oh, they were like us. Those conversations in the hallway where, hey, this, we'll see. Maybe it's a leverage play. Maybe this is just to dip the toe into the college world, just to kind of see how this thing plays out. I think most of us, and look, not everyone, because there's a few people that I did talk to that felt like it was real. But there was definitely a feeling of, hey, I'm an NFL guy. I'm a Sunday guy, not a Saturday guy. And I think there's a few of us that are sitting there going, ooh, okay. But now that it's done, we're all sitting here going, yeah, he's probably going to crush it.
North Carolina, Wake Forest next year on the CW is going to be weird. It's going to be really weird.
Sign me up for that one. I'll tell
our
you,
buddy
I'll tell you this,
with our buddy Tom Brenneman on the call.
Yeah, no, ACC Media Day is going to be crazy.
Yeah,
like, just think about that. I think there's a unique perspective now that Coach may or may not. I have no idea. Chip Kelly was one of those guys where Chip, I used to interact with when he was at Oregon, when I was at Pac-12 Network. Sure. He obviously leaves, goes to Philly. It is what it is. Then goes to ESPN, did the media thing. And I think he would even tell you, like, that sort of changes his perception on what, these shows are and what that job is. And Coach was always great to me, whether he was at Oregon or he was at UCLA. But, to me, I just wonder if Belichick and sort of the thorniness that he's had when he was on the sidelines at New England, if that carries over into North Carolina. Because candidly, I actually don't think it does. I think there's some of that stuff, but not all of it.
You spent some time in the Bay Area. If you're a Niner fan right now, and if you're that organization, where are you going in this offseason based on what you've seen this year? Do you realize that Brock Purdy is just a system guy, and without those marquee players in the lineup, he just becomes a very ordinary quarterback? What are you doing with this organization when it comes to next season, knowing this year is now a wash?
Yeah, look, I mean, I saw some metrics coming off of the TNF game. I think it's like a 1% chance for them to get into the postseason. The door was relatively open because of how competitive, I'll use air quotes around competitive, that division has been. But this is tough.
Mike, you could still get two playoff teams out of that division, as crazy as it sounds, depending on what the Commanders do.
Totally. Although, to be honest with you, I actually still don't think that happens. Like, I actually personally think it's going to be the Rams that break away here, just based off of the schedule and the way that they've been playing, and maybe some doubts that I have about Seattle. But, getting back to the Niners here, number one, Brock Purdy is a $200 million plus quarterback. This is the going rate for QBs, whether we want to say, hey, that's too much money or not enough money, system quarterback, star in the NFL.
$200 million quarterback.
Look, I mean, Jordan Love got 220.
Jordan Love's better than him, though. I can't get
look at the results. I mean, Jordan Love is a walking turnover right now in a lot of these games. Brock Purdy's taken a team to a Super Bowl. And granted, look, you can use the title system quarterback, and you're not alone. And by the way, every quarterback that's out there is running some sort of system. I look at the success that he had that other quarterbacks weren't able to have. And to me, once again, whether you think he's good or not, right? I mean, you could think he's the worst quarterback in the NFL.
I don't think he's the worst. I just think he's mid.
No, I think he's definitely in the top half of the league. And I just look at what the going rate is now for quarterbacks. And I know it sounds crazy for us to say $200 million, but I just look at a guy that's had success in the league, is having success. Where does that organization go? Because, by the way, they know what it's like to have to go into the draft and take a guy and see it not work out. They have a dude. Everyone knows that you need a guy on Sundays to lead your team. And Brock has played better than I think anyone had anticipated. He's played through injuries. He's responded coming off of an elbow injury, leading a team to a Super Bowl. I look at the pieces that are around him, and this is a season where they just got snake bit. It's as simple as that. Brandon Ayuk, there was controversy. Trent Williams in his contract heading into the season. Ayuk goes down. I mean, Christian the whole thing just not good.
Mike Yam's going to hang for one more segment. We've got commercials. We got to take them. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere. All right, one more segment with Mike Yam. Talking some NFL. He made me almost fall out of my chair. If I fell out of this chair, I'd get hurt. This is a high chair, man. Almost made me fall out of my chair when he said Brock Purdy's a $200 million quarterback. Really?
They're going to pay him, Jason. They're going to pay him to at least $200 million.
Oh, God.
That's what the deal is. It's the going rate now in the NFL for these quarterbacks, whether you like it or not. And believe me, some of these deals have come through, and I get the eyebrow raised, and I'm like, man, that's a lot of cash.
There's just too many examples of it going. I mean, Cleveland, Deshaun Watson, Jacksonville right now with Trevor Lawrence, the Giants with Daniel Jones. Like, it just feels like...
I'm with you. Look, I don't know if I would run it that way. I just think the Niners are in a really precarious situation because they have a roster. Look, once again, I mean, they're not even a postseason team, and it's tough to even look ahead to next season. Well, we don't even know what's going to happen, this year in the postseason, who's going to be in, who wins the Super Bowl, the whole thing. But generally speaking, I think we could all say when the 49ers are a healthy football team, they're on the short list in the NFC, right, to get to a Super Bowl. And I think that organization is going to look at this roster and say, if we don't pay Brock Purdy, right, and he's not a long-term guy, like, what are we next season? And what are we 2 seasons from now? And I think that's like why these windows are – everyone thinks the windows are really big. The reality is they're not. No. They're not. We had this conversation, Jason, the other day on one of our shows. I was the Baltimore Ravens. And, the Ravens, to me, I think have the best roster in the NFL. And, I know record wouldn't show that, but, I can story a lot of these losses into like kind of these freakazoid moments. And the conversation was about Justin Tucker. And it's like, hey, what do we do with him? And I'm sitting here going, guys, like, look around the league. You don't really have an option. Like, you kind of have to bring someone in. And I don't know if that's a competition. But like, what do you do in a pivotal moment when you don't feel like your kicker can necessarily kick an extra point or kick a 40-yard field goal? At his peak, he like dictated. I mean, he was a game changer. Like, you're calling plays differently when you know that he can kick a 55, 60, 65-yard field goal. Now, all of a sudden, you're calling plays differently because you don't know if he can kick a 40-yard field goal. What are you supposed to do in the postseason? And because these windows are so tight. So sorry to rant and rave. I'm like closet Ravens fan, but it just speaks to this point, like, what the Kansas City Chiefs have been able to accomplish, man. Remarkable. What we saw the Patriots do, remarkable.
Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. I mean,
no question.
I mean, we were just talking coach of the year. I mean, who's your coach of the year right now, Mike?
Yeah, Tomlin is no question.
It's got to be Tomlin, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who else?
Look, O'Connell to me is in that mix as well. You can make an argument for Dan Campbell. I certainly would. But I think what's very obvious about Mike Tomlin are these public decisions that he makes where you go, really? And then it works out. Justin Fields starts this year because Russell Wilson is banged up and they're winning games and they're playing pretty good. And he pulls Justin out of the lineup. And I'm like, damn, really? Like,
see, I was in favor of it.
You were? Okay.
Yep. I was on the record on the show saying you've got to find out what you have in Russell Wilson. You could always go back to Justin Fields. You've got to find out what you have in Russell Wilson. It's paid off.
And it has, like, that offense has found another gear, another level. And I think we're having this conversation about, where do they sit in the AFC? Are they a team that maybe can get to an AFC championship game? I think the answer is yes, with that squad. But look, and I'll circle back on the Vikings right now, just because, I think they're sort of in the mix for a lot of awards as well. That team doesn't get nearly enough love for what they've been able to accomplish. So
I agree.
The point is, there's Tomlin is no question on the short list.
I've got about 2 minutes here, so let me ask you a couple of quick college football playoff questions, because you got Clemson, you've got SMU, both making the playoffs. You've had a chance to obviously see more of those teams this year than probably any of us had. Were you surprised ultimately the committee went with SMU?
No. I'm so glad that they did for a variety of reasons, right? Like SMU and Oregon, the only teams that ran the table in conference play this year. I think that needs to be rewarded. I don't think you should be able to punish a team for making it to a conference championship game. So I was candidly a little concerned there, but I think what the committee had to do was basically reward a team and not penalize a team for getting as far as they did, because then there's like strategy in the mix. Like, what do you do in future years where teams, and I'm not saying teams would purposely lose, I'm not suggesting that, but I think it then creeps into your head like, hey, not only do we have to win in the motivation there, but this might knock us out. It's a 12-team playoff now. there's enough space for all of these teams to get in. And the reality is, teams like Alabama or insert whoever, you can't have some of the losses look the way that they did and expect to get there over a team that lost in a conference championship. Like, I don't buy it.
I only got about 45 seconds now. SMU, my concern is if they go get dusted by Penn State for whatever reason, future years, the committee's going to look at this situation differently, and they're going to take a 3-loss Alabama rather than the second ACC team or something like that. And it's not supposed to work that way, but it will.
Yeah, I think that, look, one, I don't know if they get blown out. Penn State, I think played better than I thought they were going to play against Oregon, candidly speaking. But SMU, I think, can roll with those dudes. I don't know if they win that game, but the only pushback that I would have there is when we had 4 teams and we saw like a TCU example, right? Like, they get absolutely annihilated in a national championship. I think the buffer now with the 12 teams is so big, like, it's a little bit of a less of a concern for me.
Yeah, I hope you're right, and I'm rooting for SMU. I think it'd be an amazing story. That was certainly one of the best games of that championship weekend. Mike Yam, catch him on NFL Network, the CW on the ACC broadcasts as well. Go get his book, Fried Rice and Marinara. He's going to be writing another one, he tells me, as well. We'll have him back on next year to talk about that. Hey, enjoy the holidays, my friend. Good to catch up with you.
You're the best. Thank you.
We're coming back. Welcome back to this Friday edition of Sports Wrap. Finish things out with Page versus the Prince 10 minutes from now. Week 15 NFL picks. But if it's a Friday, that can only mean one thing. Our friend Robert Littal drops by, founder of Black Sports Online. All right, I got 2 stories for you this week I want to talk about, Robert. One, I did not think we would. If you told me at the beginning of the week I'd have a Bronny James item in our conversation, I would have probably had you drug tested. Bronny James goes for 30 last night. And it wasn't just the fact that he went for 30. It was the way he went for 30. Now, I get it. A lot of the guys he's playing will be, working at Lowe's or Home Depot in 6 months or playing in Europe or South America or somewhere else. But that was an impressive 30 last night. He did it both inside and out. And I'm not saying we should, crown him, as Dennis Green would say, but I mean, it was pretty impressive what he did last night.
You know what was interesting? It was on the road.
Yeah.
So they got Bronny out of LA. They got Bronny away from his dad. They got Bronny away from the LA media. They got him away from all of that stuff. And look at what happened. All of a sudden he flourishes. I think with someone like Bronny, there's so much attention on him, right? It's very difficult for him to just be comfortable out on the court because there's so many eyes on him, or his dad is right there on the sideline staring at him. I think, I don't mean to say, hey man, I wouldn't want my father, but I think at a certain point you gotta take the training wheels off. You gotta let him be his own man, his own player. And I think that's what happened. I think nobody was talking about him yesterday. No, I didn't even know he was playing until he had 20 points.
Yeah, I'm with you. You mentioned LeBron for a second. I was talking about with our friend Kurt Heelan of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com earlier in the week. And it gets me to wondering, this idea of a lot of people would say, would LeBron ever ask out of LA if things got bad, or if they thought they could get something for him and he can go win a championship somewhere else, that sort of thing. And a lot of people have been like, no, because Bronny's there. He's not going to leave Bronny. But maybe there's a part of me that thinks at some point he would go to Bronny and say, all right, man, I got you into this league. I mean, let's be honest. I got you in here. I got you the opportunity. Now you go and do your thing. I'm going somewhere else to win a title. Does LeBron strike you as the type that would ever do that?
No. I mean, in a sense that I think that he wants to stay in LA for his retirement tour. He wants that attention. He's doing the documentary. He wants to do the last dance like Michael Jordan. I don't think that works for, any other team. Maybe, Cleveland, maybe the Knicks. It would have to be something, big like that. But I think the plan all along was, let's do this in LA, championship or not. Let's get Bronny in the league where we have all his power. Maybe he wouldn't have that type of power on another team. But I do think at a certain point, LeBron has to retire. And then that's when we'll be able to actually tell if Bronny has what it takes. Because as long as he's under this umbrella of LeBron, I don't think he can fully reach his potential.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Joe Burrow was playing a football game on Monday night, and somebody else was trying to rob his home. And then in the process, we found out that he had this model girlfriend that had been rumored, and now a lot of people are talking about that, in addition to players, the need for players in all major league sports, especially star players, to sort of protect their homes better. We got wind that Joe Burrow has this model girlfriend who made the 911 call and all of that. What was your big takeaway from that story this week?
Well, technically the police said she was a employee of Joe Burrow. Very odd. I mean, not odd getting robbed.
Joe Burrow was not happy with all the details that came out.
Yeah. I mean, the robbing part is something that's, been happening for years now when players are on the road and things of that nature. And so you need to get some armed security for that. I think the more interesting part is how quickly, her name got out there from the 911 call, almost as if she wanted it to get out there. So people knew that she was at Joe Burrow's house at 8 p.m. while he was, on the road and would be waiting for him when he got back.
In the 911 call, by the way, she said, in my house or our house or something like that. Yeah. That was the other words that caught my attention. I was like, my house? Wow, and that was quick.
Told the cops what they took from us. Now there's some rumors that Joe Burrow has another girlfriend that maybe that's why he was so upset. Little cross section of girlfriends there, but yeah, Joe Burrow is someone that it looks like when it comes to his private life, he's a little like Derek Jeter.
He bought a Batmobile. I mean, the dude bought a Batmobile. He bought the Batmobile. Come on, he bought the Christian Bale Batmobile.
First off, that's the worst Batmobile in the Batman series. That's the first thing. Secondly, you got to watch out for these IG models, man. I tell you, if you're Travis Hunter or if you're Joe Burrow, you got to be careful, who you're letting in your house. And like I said, maybe the police might want to investigate her a little bit. Maybe they get some more answers about exactly who broke into Joe Burrow's house.
It just blows my mind that all these players have zillions of dollars and they can't get better security. Like, come on.
Well, you heard Tua said he got that John Wick security in. Miami, they rob you more in Miami than anywhere else, but he let them know, you come in, it's might gonna be a movie, but it ain't gonna be no blanks that's gonna be shot.
Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder, hanging out with us on the show. Time went by too fast this week. We'll do it again next week. It's all right. Always appreciate you.
Rufus. That's almost Christmas.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, we'll do next week, and then we'll be off. We'll be off for Christmas. We'll do next. Yeah, well, next week's not Christmas. I'll see you next week.
Believe it or not, we're gonna be at 2025 in a little over 2 weeks. Quarter of a way through the
putting together our end of the year programming as we speak. Thank you, my friend. I'll see you next week.
All right. Have a good one.
All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for another week. Don't forget, SportsWrap weekends available on some of these same affiliates. If not, go and find it. Or call your station's program director. SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast, also available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Odyssey. Yeah, they're all there. Every single show. Every single embarrassingly bad pick we've ever made. Right there for you. And a nice tidy little bow. Also, SportsWrap with Jason Page. Make sure to check out our Substack available on Substack, of all places. Go and check that out as well. All right. Without any further delay, Sam Yarnell, it is Friday, which means it's time for Picking Supremacy. Time to figure out who can make the best NFL picks for Week 15. We call it Page versus the Prince.
It's Friday, and that means it's time for the weekly face-off for sports betting bragging rights. It's Paige versus the Prince on the Sports Wrap.
It generally works better when the graphics go at the same time Chad's voice go, but that's all right. Who's really keeping score? If you are, you need to find something better to do. Just want to say. Sam, I was 2-2. It feels like every week has been a 2-2 week, with the exception of 1 week where I went undefeated and maybe 1 or 2 weeks where I went 1-3. A lot of 2-2, a lot of mediocrity here. We will not be invited to the new master class. Did you see that, by the way? Did you see the new master class for sports betting? Have you seen this?
Yes.
My friend Nick Costos is actually one of the people doing it. Joe Fortenbaugh is on it as well.
We're going to turn this into odds and ends for a second. We'll go regular weekday style. That masterclass is
I was curious to know what you thought of it.
Uproar.
We'll
say it's creating a lot of uproar.
Uproarious? Is that what you're saying?
It's controversial, Jason Page.
Really?
In the sports betting community. Yeah, there is a lot of people are using a lot of not nice terms about it being taking advantage of novice gamblers.
Really? Conversation to be continued.
Well,
now you got my attention a little bit.
We'll talk about it next week.
We're gonna have to. We're going to have to address it because I just wrote a column this week for MSNBC about the need for more betting education, more sports betting education. And then 2 days later, I see a masterclass. Can I do that again? Spirit fingers. All right, Sam, real quick, since I killed half the segment.
I mean, my goodness, Jason Page's theme this week is just taking my time during these segments. I got to read off picks.
Yeah,
all right, we'll start down in New Orleans. Jason was just talking about the Jake Haener thing. Yeah, he might start. It looks like he probably will as of the time of this recording. I'm still going over in this game. Give me 43.5. Through the number. We only need Jake Haener to get in the end zone maybe once. I think that the Commanders against this Saints defense may put up 42 points on their own. We're talking about blowout city here, but I'm going to be safe. I'm going to take the over in case the Saints get the new quarterback bump. Give me Commanders Saints over 43.5. Next, oh my gosh, it's the garbage time special on Page versus the Prince this week, folks. The Carolina Panthers -2.5. That's right, I'm laying it with the Carolina Panthers this week. Why? I like to fade Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys have been successful on the road this year. They haven't been successful at home, but I don't think that they're going to be able to run into Charlotte, a team that has been playing well lately, and Bryce Young has looked just fine as their quarterback. Give me the Panthers, -2.5. Win it with a late field goal. 23-20. We'll take our cash and walk away. All right, next. Over 46.5. Dolphins, Texans. This thing might have 60 points in it. I mean, all we've seen from this Dolphins offense since they've come back is Tua throw the ball to Jonnu Smith. I think he might do it for 150 yards again this week. And I think CJ Stroud will figure out a way to put up 20-something against a depleted Dolphins defense that, quite frankly, hired a lot more old guys in the offseason than they should have. Give me over 46.5 in Dolphins, Texans. Finally, I love Bo Nix. I love you, Bo Nix. He might be my second favorite rookie quarterback this year. Denver Broncos -3.5. The Colts going to the Mile High City. You think I'm going to trust Anthony Richardson at that elevation for the first time in his career? No chance. Give me the Broncos, lay the 3.5. Those are my four. Right. Over 43.5, Commanders Saints. Panthers -2.5 against the Cowboys. Over 46 in Dolphins Texans. Broncos -3.5 at home against the Colts.
All right, I got 30 seconds. Let me go 35 seconds. Let me go Commanders Saints. Give me the Saints. What? Why are you looking at me like that?
You have more time than that. You have a minute.
No, 6:15, I start the music. I got to say goodbye. Now I have even less time. Commanders Saints, give me the Saints +7.5. Chiefs -4.5 in Cleveland against the Browns. Give me the Lions -2.5. I think that is a missed number. I love the Lions. If it goes to 3.5, I might change my mind. And give me Steelers Eagles under 42.5. That number feels a bit high to me. Sam is guffawing. He is in shock.
You
can't
love
believe
the
it.
Saints.
I do.
I love it.
I do.
I love it.
I do. I love the Saints. Give me the fighting Jake Hainers.
Give me 2 touchdowns out of Jake Haener. I'll go home happy.
That's going to do it for us. Another week of Sports Wrap is in the books. Thanks, Mike Yam. Thanks, Robert Littal. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. Have yourself a wonderful weekend. I'm Jason Page. Sports Wrap weekends, don't forget. We'll see you back here on Monday. Lots more to do then. We'll recap Week 15 and a whole bunch more. See ya.